anything.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
So like I said, the blueprint is in the Bible.
Okay.
It shows, so what God's plan is, He wants us to have a fullness.
Yes.
Okay. So that's why the one shows the TWPP, which means the True Wealth Prevention Program,
Yes.
and the other one is the Wealth by Design. So there is the blueprint in the Bible.
Okay.
In the 3 parables.
Okay. Where's the? So we got the TWP. Oh, okay. I got you. Okay, I'm following.
True Wealth Prevention Program. That's what 99% of the population is on.
Okay.
It is a program.
Okay.
So there is a contributing factors to depend on which one you end up with.
Okay.
Okay. So in the parable of the pearl of great price, it teaches us about value.
Yes.
So because of the value of the pearl, they were saying if you understood the value, that you would sell everything you had to go get that pearl.
Yes.
So it has the highest single value. It's so valuable that you would sell everything in order to have one thing.
Yes.
So why does that matter? Because when you don't understand value, you're like, okay, well, I'll give you 10 of these for 10 of these. So, or
Yes.
people are comparing hours. Okay, give me 50 hours.
Okay, that's huge.
I'm seeing you work. I'm seeing you busy. You're doing lots. I mean, I'm doing lots. I see you doing little. You're only doing one thing. That's right. I'm doing the highest value thing.
Gotcha.
So it teaches us about that there's a difference in value.
Yes.
It's not about 1 equals 1, 2 equals 2. That's equivalent to a kid not understanding value, because if you're a kid, you can they'll give you a paper dollar in exchange if you give them 10 pennies. Because they're like, wow, I got 10. You only get 1. I've got a great trade.
That's awesome.
They don't understand value. So in the real world, besides knowing what's in our pocket, knowing how to, spend less than we make, or understand we get a paycheck, beyond that, most financial decisions we're making it like the same kid. We're comparing 1 to 10.
That's awesome.
When in reality, that 1 could be a $1,000 bill. And the
Yes.
10 could be pennies.
Yes.
So we usually do not understand value. The challenge with that is, if you don't understand value, you don't know, you might be rejecting something of high value based on not understanding it.
Yes.
So what the Pearl of Great Price lets us know is, when we understand something of true value, we would be willing to give up everything in exchange for that one thing of high value.
Awesome.
So the cost is everything in exchange for one thing. Why? Because it's worth it.
Yes.
It's not even a sacrifice, because we understand the benefit is worth the cost. We would gladly exchange it.
Yep.
So that's what that's letting us know.
Okay.
And then also, when we understand that value, we're going to protect that value from people that don't understand it. Why? Because most people don't understand value. So just because people reject our value really doesn't reflect value. A pearl of great price has an inherent value, whether people understand that value or not. The ones that understand it will exchange the appropriate cost to get that benefit. Those that don't, all it does is show that they don't understand the value. Or it shows that they're not willing to.
Yes.
Either way, it's one of those things, typically.
And, and let me just say, just because it didn't catch it on the video, but that's why, you don't throw your pearls before swine, because they don't understand the value.
Right.
Okay.
And so now we got to realize that swine is situational. It's not like, oh, everybody are pigs, but if we're trampling over value, we're swine in that scenario.
Yeah.
Because it's saying we don't understand value, so we're trampling over it. And unfortunately, we're trampling over somebody else's pearl. We're trying to say that there's thing that they might have exchanged everything for of the highest value, because we're like, oh, that's just one thing. I got 10 things. We're trying to devalue them based on our own ignorance.
Yeah.
Because we don't understand. So that's kind of, but it's just one pearl. So we're trying to say, okay, look, there is one thing that has the highest value. So there are a value correlation. Now, if you realize, it doesn't say anything about risk-reward.
No.
It says cost-benefit relationship. So, so when we're talking about finance and we're talking about investing, why is the only conversation ever had in the mainstream is value is always tied to risk-reward. Why is it talking about an exchange, for something of high value? So that's just kind of letting us know that maybe it's because they don't understand value. So those mainstream people are the ones, they are the swine trying to devalue all the non-traditional investments.
Yeah.
So anyway, then the parable of talents. Okay, that's the next one.
Okay.
What that one teaches us is often we're talking about the parable of talents and we start saying dumb things like, oh, God's given us talents, I need to be a piano player. Okay, fine, be a piano player. I'm not bashing on a piano player, but the parable of talents actually represented money. Talents during that time was money.
Yeah.
So it's saying do not bury your talents. Who was burying their talents? People that were trying to protect their money.
Ha ha ha, that's funny.
So
That's awesome.
they did it because it felt safe. So they were trying to protect it.
Yes.
And God comes and says, or the Lord of the talent man, came to collect and was like, I gave you this many talents. What's in return? You want at least equal amount. And anyway, they weren't duplicated because they were protected. So they did not grow. So why does that even matter? Because then he says, the least you could have done, at least put it out to the exchangers. He didn't say that was the best thing to do. He said, that's the least you could do. So that's probably what the average person could have at least done. So, so to me, it's like if all you're doing is trying to protect your money instead of growing it, why would he give you 5 talents if you're just going to protect your 5? So the more he gives you, the more he wants you to multiply it.
Awesome.
And if you don't, he's going to give it to someone else. So there's a certain amount of talents out there, and it's going to get allocated to the people that want to multiply them. You cannot protect your talents by keeping them idle and burying them, regardless of how it feels. If it feels safe, that's great. They weren't given to you to be buried. The other reason why that matters is because that teaches us that it's all about allocation. So you make some money, where do you put that money? Do you put it in somewhere where it produces something and it grows? Or do you put your money to where you give it to the exchangers and hope that they produce something to grow? Or you bury it? So now it's even about stewardship. So, so some are burying it, some are doing the least they could do is hand it to the exchangers, and the next group is they're actually going to take it and multiply it. And how are they going to multiply it? I don't know. Let's see what the next parable says. But that kind of gives us also a good, better, best model.
Awesome.
So the parable of the 3. So this is where, the parable of the sower. This is my favorite because this to me is what allows me not to feel like my pearl is going to always be trampled by the swine. Because the people, the talent bracket that are making 5 talents, 10 talents, 20 talents, but what they're doing with the talents is they're doing the minimum, which is hand it to exchangers. They actually use some of the people in the parable of the 3 to justify it. So in the parable of the sower, what happens? Some seeds are dropped.
Yes.
I believe there's 4 seeds.
I think so.
So the first one, Luke 4, is where it's found. And that's where there's 4 personality types, so maybe this will play and maybe it won't. But the first, as soon as it drops, I think that one gets swooped up immediately by a bird or something. Another one drops, sprouts immediately, and then dies because there was no root. I believe the third one got taken over by weeds.
Yeah.
Now the fourth one, that one's strange. That one multiplied some 30, some 60, some 100-fold. So if we're looking at return on investment, someone might say, well, the risk has to do with return, but yeah, well, what are the risks? They're specific. It's what's if this. Oh, so here's where this matters. The seed was a good seed. So the seed is already good. The variable was who had the seed. So there's a direct correlation between the person with the seed and what happens with the seed.
Doesn't mean the seed was bad.
Does not. The seed produced 30, 60, and 100, so it's already proven that the seed was good.
Okay.
So what were the factors? So now it's more about, now we don't have to try to devalue the seed.
The seed's good.
The seed's good.
We know it's good.
It's already proven.
Yep.
And so now we're just saying, okay, now let's work backwards. What are the contributing factors that dictate whether we get nothing because it's dead, or we get 30, 60, or 100? So what happens, back to the parable of the 20, or the 2, these people that have 5, I go and say, okay, here's an opportunity to plant your seed, and based on your talents and abilities, you and your understanding, because it's your understanding that made the 5, based on your understanding, you should be able to get 30, 60, or 100. But your feedback is, no, that's get rich quick, or that's pie in the sky, and tell me all the reasons why it will not work. When in reality, it's not pie in the sky. There's specific contributing factors that differentiate those that have something dead that have the 30, 60, and 100. And the reality is to justify film that I'm just handing to the exchangers, I have to focus on bringing up the evidence of all the 3 people, every 3 out of 4 people that don't make it. First, identifying, well, I already know why they didn't make it. They didn't have a foundation. They probably didn't understand anything about farming. They didn't put much effort into it. It just dropped and it sprouted on its own. So, I mean, it rained. They didn't do anything. The other one got taken over by weeds. So, you know, it's not like they were trying to protect their investment or cultivating it or doing anything to make sure it did grow. So, to me, those 3 were not actively engaged in growing their seed. They were passive. They weren't good stewards of the seed.
Yeah.
So, if the reason why you're blessed with 5 talents is because you're a good steward, then you probably, if you were actively planting that seed and growing it, cultivating it, and harvesting it, is there a reason why you wouldn't be a 30, 60, or 100? Or are you saying that you're just like the 3? So you're disqualifying yourself, which is fine, but, you know, it's... Oh, and here's where he gets the next step. This part is important to me because to feel good about it, you have to say, well, look at the 3 that didn't do it, that weren't successful. They weren't good people because they liked money so much that they wanted the 30, 60, or 100 that they were willing to put their family in jeopardy. And because they were willing to put their family in jeopardy and all of a sudden the crop didn't grow, you know, they didn't make it. And, you know, I'm not willing to do that. Or the people that do get the 30, 60, and 100, you say they got lucky, or, you know, they got the 30, 60, or 100 because of it, you know, return was based on risk, and they were willing to take that risk. I'm not willing to take that risk and put my family into jeopardy. So now all of a sudden you already feel so it's almost like you've already devalued the person that put in all that active effort to grow the 100 by saying they didn't do anything special. They were willing to risk their family's livelihood, and I'm not, so I'm noble. Versus, well, maybe they're willing to figure out what wasn't working in the 3 areas and come up with solutions to where, you know, they planted the right soil, or, you know, they weeded it, or they actually understood what they were planting, or, you know, they utilized their talents. So that's not to say there's not obstacles, but that's also to say that there's also solutions.
Absolutely.
And there are times where your crop fails. There are times the storm comes in and boom, it crashes, it's dead. So, but statistically, if you keep planting, you keep working the soil, you get more and more familiar to where, you know how to do it. Sooner or later, you will start getting those crops. You might start out with just getting 1 fold. You might start out with 10. You might start getting 30. You might start getting 60. You might start getting 100. Now, why does this matter? Back to stewardship. The people at the towns who did the minimum, who handed it to the exchangers, where are the exchangers putting their money? They're planting the seeds, and they're the ones getting the 30, 60, or 100. And then they're willing to give you, so on one seed, they're willing to get, they made 100 seeds, but they're willing to give you, return your one seed back with 0.05% interest. So now you got like one seed and whatever. So like you got your seed back plus a little piece of the seed. So they're willing to plant the crop, harvest the crop. They did the work. So that's fine. It's not a big deal. But like I said, it's not just about risk reward. It's about, that is extremely doable. It's just, do you value pearls? That's a single value. Do you value seeds? That has the highest collective yield. So, because it'll continually produce. So that's just kind of, and this part I'm going to tie this in anyway, just because this is where the financial insecurity happens though, is we feel confident, the 99%, the TWPP, because it's our income that's making us feel good. And so we put it away with the exchangers. We don't know anything really what we're doing. We just know that that's what everybody else does, so we do it. It's convenient. They set up for us right there at work. We don't have to think about it. We don't have to be actively engaged. We're just handing over our stewardship. And, you know, there was some type of trigger, some stimulus that told us to do it. Like, oh, yeah, there's a benefit. You know, you'll pay less taxes. Okay, that's good enough. Like, they know the motive. Boom, we're there. One thing that's funny is, well, I won't do the funny part yet. But the part that matters on that is that model, you are building a nest egg. And so now you're not
With
really,
the work model?
With the talent work model, yes.
Yeah.
And that is where the actual Sandy foundation is, because you are trying to protect an egg. So you're always trying to protect this egg. You're trying to, it's supposed to grow, but there's always this fear underlining because you're trying to protect it, this egg, and you need it to last until you're dead. Versus, but here's what's funny about the egg is it's one asset. It's well, let me just put it this way. On the parable of the seed, what this group's trying to do, they're more like trying to raise goose that will lay unlimited eggs. That way, if one egg goes bad, they got all these other eggs. So they're not spending all their time out to protect one egg. And so, yeah, that's why that's on the protection model. But what will happen is the talent group will say, you know, why didn't you, well, the people trying to do the golden goose model, they're just speculating. You know, what if that goose dies? Well, that really is a concern. What if it does? So yeah, we might have to figure out how to protect that goose. I mean, that's the obstacle. We're aware of that. Thanks for helping me realize that is an obstacle. But number one, you're getting your egg that you're trying to protect from a goose, and you're at the mercy of someone protecting that goose. So the difference is control. You know, we're actually engaged in our own geese, raising them, growing them, having their eggs. So if one unfortunately doesn't work out, there's more. So we're not relying on one egg. And like I said, they call ours speculation, but your whole model is based on hoping that over the long run, that the value of this egg goes up. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But it's just kind of, I want to make sure that we understand that there's fallacies there, but because it's familiar, parable 3, people that are actually trying to plant and working on the harvest get categorized a lot of times as the get rich quick, and they're just, the people in the talent model are just waiting to see their crop fail. And instead, they should realize that the job they even have is based on somebody that was willing to go plant that crop. And where you're investing your money is with somebody that's willing to go plant that crop and get a multiplying effect. So it's more just a stewardship type thing.
So with the pearl of great price, so just so I understand the chart correctly, pearl of great price, highest single value yield, and then talents equals financial allocation.
Allocation, because you decide where you put your talents. You decide where you put your money.
Okay, gotcha.
You put it in an area where you have some control, and based on your abilities or based on your stewardship, you get 0, you lose the crop, or you get 30, 60, or 100, or you leave even that stewardship in somebody else's hands.
Gotcha. And those three then, so they all correlate with the pearl of great price is good, the talents is better, and the best obviously is the collective yield, the highest collective yield, the parable of the seed, of the sower. No.
What they do is they actually teach us about both models. So in both models,
yeah.
it's the question is, value is going to be presented to you or created. Are you going to accept it or are you going to reject it? Do you understand the value? So
Okay.
when we're talking about financial stuff, and there's a financial decision, and you say it's not worth it.
Based on
Based
what?
on what? Based
Yes.
on an understanding.
A
based
feeling.
On I see you want me to exchange everything I have for one. That's risky. I don't want to lose everything I have. So is it based on a lot versus a little, or is it based on understanding value? Because if it's understanding value, you'd say, yeah, that's a lot of low value stuff. That one thing is worth more than all that together. That's a pretty good exchange.
Yeah.
So it's based on, do you understand value?
Okay.
If you don't, you are a pig.
Yes.
Bottom line.
Yep.
So just know,
Understanding
if you're gonna
value.
reject someone's value, at least understand the value enough to reject it, versus trampling over something of value based on you not understanding value.
Yes.
So that's that. Then the talents is showing that we all have a chance. So we all have this chance to learn and take the time and the effort to learn about value.
Yes.
Learn about the value exchange. Is it worth it? We need to learn. We need to dig deep enough to know, is it or isn't it? So there has to be an understanding of that. And then back to us, momentum. This is important too, for momentum. Because we have to understand value enough to know that who to present our value to.
Yes.
Because if we're continually presenting our value to pigs, and also we start getting discouraged because now we start doubting our own value, that's cancer.
Yes. It is cancer. Kills our momentum.
Kills our momentum.
Yeah.
A pearl already has a fixed value, regardless of whether someone understands or not. If they don't understand, that's just them saying, I don't understand. It does not reflect the true value. So we just kind of got to be cautious that the feedback from the pig does not mean that we are not aligned with value.
Yes.
So ignore that trigger,
Yes.
regardless of the status of that pig.
Yes. That's
Because
funny.
the status of that pig might be someone who's just very good at work, and talents were given to him from who? There's another important part. Did you earn those talents yourself? Or did God bless you with more 5 talents, 10 talents, 20 talents?
Yeah. God blessed you.
God blessed you. So the talents the money you have in your pocket is not even based on a pearl. It's based on the Lord blessed you with money, a job that gave you money. So just know where you got your talents. So don't devalue pearls just because you have lots of talents. That's just kind of know that. But so back to the talents is, there's 1 talent, 5 talent, 10 talents, but the Lord was not, he was saying, what did you do with the money I gave you? Did you bury it? Did you give it to the exchangers? Or did you go out and do something that had a high yield?
And multiply it.
And multiply it. So what I call that is, the contributing factor is, we'll call talent the asset, and we'll call it asset utilization. So, did you bury it? And now, to me, here's another, what I want to say also, is sometimes if you hand it to the exchangers, it's still a form of burying it. Because if you won't utilize that money, based on an area where it could be multiplied or utilized, if you're doing it based on trying to protect it, you sacrifice growth out of protection. Now, there's nothing wrong with protecting something. You should protect stuff. But it's not based on I'm making a lower value decision because I'm on a protection model out of security. Here's what I'm saying. We're going to take one more parable in here. Now we're going to talk about, forget about the parable, we're going to go straight to, use our guy real quick, Elijah. Okay, Elijah the prophet.
Okay.
They're in a drought. He's hungry. Lord says to provide a meal for him. So where does he go? Who does the Lord provide for him? A widow who's got just enough to make one meal for her son to eat and then die. So he comes and asks for all of her talents, all of her money, all of her resources at that moment to provide for the prophet. Okay, why does that matter? What if she said, you know what? I'm going to put this away for tomorrow. Or, yeah, I'd have to, it's today's day and age, I'd actually have to buy that person a meal. But it's not in my budget. Why? Because I take a percent of my money and put it away for retirement. So I could help you today, but it might be at the expense of my retirement down the line. So I can't utilize my talents. I can utilize a couple of my talents the Lord gave me, but the other talents I got to put away for some other time. So how can you bless the hungry people with the talents the Lord gave you if your talents are put away for 30 years? They're not being utilized. Well, they're being utilized, but by who? Not by you. Your stewardship is limited now.
Yes.
Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
So for me, it's more like utilization. Like, if you have more talents, are you positioning your talents to where you can be a steward, to where you can utilize them to get the 30, 60, or 100, but also here's where it's cool is, you don't have to protect them as much if one talent gives you 100 yield.
Yeah. So what if you lose one?
Yeah. So let's say on your current model, like I said, if you planted 100 seeds, you're hoping to get 115.
Yeah.
So on this model, you could plant 2 seeds and possibly get 200. So now you have more talents, you're getting this yield. Now you can do both. You'll grow your own retirement, but it's not at the expense of not being able to help those around you.
Gotcha.
Because obviously you want to protect. You don't not protect what you have, but there is times where it's like, based on what? Because here's where it's funny. On your protection model, it's still not protected. It's feeling protected.
But in
These
reality,
people
you're
make
not.
the same mistakes that you could make. It's just you're trusting them. The other thing is, you're speculating on the value of your talents going up. What if they go down? You don't know. You aren't. Your only contributing factor is allocating the talents. Nothing else. So your contributing factor is, and there's lots. Just like you are right, there are risks here, but we can find out what they are. We can prepare for them. We can overcome them. Here, do we really know what the risks are? Or are we just doing it because it feels safe because everybody else is doing it that way? That's kind of, so why does this matter? It's because for our plan, it's based on understanding value, understanding how to allocate our talents. There's a good, better, best, straight berry, just give it to the exchangers without knowing anything, or find a way to get it where we place it to where it can do a 30, 60, or 100 yield.
Awesome.
But, so what it's saying is, there's a model, once again, this model, the wealth by design, there is a way to design using, understanding these three factors, that when you understand these three factors, you now will know how to get the 100, because now you understand that there's a value correlation to pearls. So now you're already aligning yourself with something that has a high yield. And now you're allocating money towards that. But then also, there's 3 out of 4 here. The 3 that make it. The blueprint tells us the 3 things that kept it from happening.
Yeah.
So now we're not surprised. We know that we have that, just because we planted the good seed, that just because we plant a $100 or a 100 yield type seed doesn't necessarily mean we'll get the 100 type of seed. It means that is potentially available to us.
Yes.
But it also tells us that opposition in all things, it tells us what could prevent it. So let's say I give you an opportunity to allocate some of your talents for that seed. Guess what? I already know what you're going to do is say, oh yeah, what about these 3 people? You're going to tell me how, you know them and it didn't work out, and you also know someone that makes lots and lots of talents, and that person says, I would never do that. So you're going to tell me the reason why. But none of the reasons are going to be, oh, maybe what were the contributing factors? Those are probably just obstacles. Oh, maybe there's a solution. One thing I want to make sure, okay, so just know there's already opposition on that, because let's say your full potential is to do a lot of good things with your talents. Right now, where your talents are positioned, you can only have a limited effect on the amount of people you can help out.
Yes.
So there's
okay.
not a multiplying effect.
Okay, I'm going to add something.
Okay,
I'm going to push pause.
Sure. So here's where this matters. Is
Okay, so parable of the sower. Okay.
yes. Okay. So there's one in there that's pretty important to me, and I don't remember if it's 1, 2, or 3, but there's one where the seed dropped and the crop sprouted up.
Okay.
That to me is very important. That's a time value. Okay.
Okay.
This piece right here is the foundation of where our culture, our society, and 99% of us, the natural man, makes decisions based off that. Because what happens is at that moment, there is evidence, we see evidence that what we just did was right. But if we don't know the principles behind it, because that seed just dropped, we didn't do anything. It just popped up on its own. We didn't understand that seed. We didn't understand the ground around it. We did not understand the contributing factors for that seed to pop up and grow. So at that moment, we have nothing but confidence. We think that our plan, our model, our whatever we're doing, our allocation is evidence that we know what we're doing. We don't. It wasn't our seed. The seed had its own whatever. So all of a sudden now we think we are building our house on a solid foundation. When do we find out we're not? All of a sudden,
The roots dry up.
all of a sudden the root's dry up and it dies. Well, before it died, we were confident. We saw the evidence, we knew. So a lot of times we have success because we have the evidence. So it's like you want to get your kids to do something, you give them a reward, you say, hey, if you do this, I'll take you to Disneyland. All of a sudden your kids are being good kids, and all of a sudden you have evidence, yeah, I'm not a parent, I'm a good parent. Or, you tell your kid, if you don't get A's, I'm going to beat you, and all of a sudden they go from D's to A's, and you're like, boom, all of a sudden you have evidence, man, I'm a good parent. That is short-term evidence, and because it's all based on common sense, what you see, you think it worked, but you still don't know any principles behind. How much time did you spend learning, understanding about cultivating the child, cause and effect, understanding the mind of the child, understanding human behavior? No, you looked and you said, okay, I see these people raising their kids. If they can do it, I can do it. And I have evidence that this works. I saw my parents do this model, and I turned out to be good, so it must work, obviously. As if it's some one-size-fits-all. But it might work on one kid, it might not. We don't know, because why? We never took time to understand the seed or what really caused that seed to grow or not grow or whatever. Chances are we just got lucky. Now, on the flip side, it's kind of funny because maybe you did do something right. But you still don't know. You're leveraging somebody else's understanding. That's the problem. You've given the stewardship to somebody else. So sometimes the evidence, it is right. Because whoever understanding you leverage, luckily is the right person. But then there's other times where it's wrong, and by the time you find out, it's too late. Somebody's life now is jacked. Now your kid's going to counseling. Based on your overconfidence because you saw a seed sprout. So it's the evidence, like you said, it's a time thing. The other thing is Pearl of Great Price. So this, I don't know if that's for the video because this has nothing to do with investing is well, let me get back to this too, is 30, 60, 100. There is a true cost to that high. So just like there's a true cost to get the highest single value of a pearl, if you're wanting the highest collective financial value, 30, 60, or 100, it is not easy. There's a reason 3 out of 4 fail. So we're not saying it's easy, we're just saying there's contributing factors, and most of the actual hard things is more based on, am I willing to pay the price to get that understanding? Once I commit to pay the price to get that understanding, all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, there's a process, step by step by step. If I do this, 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 and this, it'll get me this, this, or this. If I don't, I'll probably be one of the 3 that doesn't work. And like I said, sometimes the evidence is deceitful because we might have done everything right that year, and that just happened to be the year that 1 out of the last 20, a hailstorm showed up and cut down our thing. But here's where it's cool is, once you've paid the price to where you know that you had it right, it just happened to be a hailstorm, you'll keep planning. And your confidence is now more based on knowing that you've done what it needs to do and it'll happen. So, like I said, the common sense, the evidence, that's, like I said, we don't want to be relying on evidence on how someone values our pearls. They may not know anything about pearls. We don't want to go based on, we see everybody else protecting their money, and while everybody else is protecting, I feel the need to protect mine, but then when everyone else is confident, I'm confident too, so then I'm less protective. It's not about protecting, not protecting. It's a facade anyway. If you don't actually understand the principles, or if you're not the steward, you can't protect them. The protection can only happen in the growth. It's just whether or not you look out and have someone else that can grow it, or if you learn how to grow it yourself. So here you're dependent on someone, which is fine. So anyway, it's about stewardship.
Awesome.
But it's also to know that there's a correlation between these. So yeah, so like I said, single value. So understanding value, understanding there's optimal ways to allocate it, and understanding that there are contributing factors that dictate on what you get, and they're very specific.
Awesome. With the high single value, below it, it's got, the CB is contributing factors, and the OP is what?
Right here?
No, right below highest. Yeah, right there.
Okay. Contributing, cost benefit.
Oh, cost benefit, okay.
Yes, so this is important.
Cost benefit, and then what's the OP?
Because you're saying it's not worth it. Do you know if it's worth it or not? Based on what? Based on your exchange of 1 for 10. So this is important because a lot of times they say, no, it's not worth it. Do you understand if it is or it's not? Most people don't understand. If you understand it, then you make that decision. It might not be worth it, but it might. So just know what you're exchanging for. Like I said, the allocation, if you allocate it a certain way, it grows. You don't? It doesn't.
What's the OP below the CB
UP.
or UP? What's
Yes. So that's understanding value,
that? Okay.
and then the P is protecting value.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha.
Let me tell you real quick one more time about the maturity of talents, because this is where I want this squashed, because most of the time an analysis is run, it's run on a multiplying, compounding interest. Okay. That is an awesome tool because it has nothing to do with what you're doing. Because
When you're talking a financial planner?
I'm talking about the whole financial industry.
Okay.
They're showing you if you invested this much a month based on compounding interest over your working career,
Yeah.
you would have this much money.
Okay.
So they are anchoring that to compounding interest.
Okay.
Okay. Guess what? You are buying a stock which has a dollar price. Let's say that stock's worth $10. Okay. So let's say that you own, at retirement time, you own 100 stocks. You paid a certain price for those stocks. So, like I said, maybe you paid $10 per stock. And now you hope that those stocks are worth $100. Correct?
Right.
Okay. There is zero compounding effect there because it's worth what it's worth. Like, it might be worth $10, it might be worth $50, it might be worth... There's no compounding number that dictates what it's worth.
Yeah.
At that time, someone says, hey, I think it's worth $100.
Yeah, there's no... Yeah, that makes sense.
So, it's like, okay, I bought this shirt, and I paid $40 for it. Well, let's just use a house for it, because real estate people do the same thing. I paid $50 or, $100,000 for a house one year. And then 5 years later, it's worth $250. And so I might now say that real estate on average over the last 30 years has averaged 6% interest. So now I'm going to show you how if you put $100,000, how if it compounded every year at 6%, it'd be worth this amount. Well, that's great, but that 250 had zero effect based on compound interest. It's all of a sudden, today people think, well, there was other contributing factors, but at that time today, people are willing to say, I'm willing to pay $250,000 for that house. Okay, so that's weird. Then all of a sudden it crashes a few years later, and all of a sudden now it's not from 100 to 250. Now it's back to 75. So all of a sudden now someone's willing to pay 75. You just had one house. The value did what it did. There was no compounding based on that 100.
Yeah.
Compounding was irrelevant. It's the same thing with stock. You're buying something at a certain price. You hope it's worth a different thing, and maybe it will, maybe it won't. There's no compounding interest.
Yeah.
Here's what is compounding. You have a compounding contribution. This month you put in $1,000. Next month you put in $1,000. The next month, that value is based on compounding contributions. And if you make enough of them, and they're spread out in enough places, diversified, which is strange because you're still buying the same thing. You're buying a retail product, paying full retail price for a product, and hoping it's worth more later. So that's not diversified. You are 100% allocated into a retail speculated product. And the only compound that's done is you've done compounding contributions. That's it.
Awesome.
That is deceitful.
It is.
So just know you're getting played with your rock foundation. And you're also putting say I make 5 talents and I put it here. Yeah, that might seem risky. But guess what? You're gambling. How's that any different?
Yeah.
The only difference is now if I mess up, I'm going to learn something about it.
Yep.
And the next time I'm not. And the next time I'm not. So I'll do compounding contributions to my model.
Yes.
Because I'll be the steward. Yeah, that's enough of that stuff. Real quick though, but here's what I just want to verify is, so right now, these people right here that are doing the protection model, or even someone else be the stewardship,
Yeah.
even if they have evidence right this moment where it looks like their crop's good,
Yeah.
they are on this model. Because they do not understand